The restaurant shimmered under golden light. Crystal glasses sparkled. Waiters floated between tables like dancers. Plates left the kitchen like artwork. And in the corner, just out of sight, a busboy in worn shoes and a crooked apron quietly cleared crumbs from linen. His name was Miguel. He walked with a slight limp. Not from birth, from work. 2 jobs. 7 days a week. He never complained. He didn't have time to. That night, the restaurant buzzed with high society energy. A media executive was dining with a producer. A retired senator was holding court near the fireplace. The head chef had 2 local news anchors at table 5. And then there was table 7. 3 men in tailored suits, half a bottle of Bordeaux in, full of themselves and their expense account. Miguel approached to refill their water glasses. One of the men, Graham, sharp jaw, sharper tongue, turned to him mid-sentence. "Careful with those hands, amigo. These napkins cost more than your paycheck." The others laughed. Miguel didn't. He bowed slightly and kept pouring. The maitre smiled from across the room, not kindly, but with a subtle nod that meant, "Yes, keep quiet. Stay useful." Miguel did. Because this was how it always went. What no one noticed was the man who had just walked in quietly, without a reservation. Black baseball cap. Weathered boots. Gray in his beard. Calm in his eyes. He didn't ask for attention. But the hostess instinctively offered him the best table. He declined. "I'll sit near the back." She hesitated, confused, then nodded. As the man walked past the velvet curtain and toward the quieter end of the room, his gaze passed over Miguel. Just for a second. A flicker of awareness. He saw everything. And said nothing. Because Keanu Reeves had just entered the restaurant, and what happened next would be remembered long after the plates were cleared. The last wave of customers had trickled out. Tablecloths were being folded. Chairs stacked. The scent of seared duck and truffle oil lingered in the air like ghosts of the elite. In the back, Miguel quietly wiped down the silver tray station. His limp was more noticeable now. His steps slower. The staff had begun to relax. The head server, Lauren, scrolled through her phone. 2 line cooks argued in Spanish about soccer. The general manager, Donovan, loosened his tie and started joking with the bartenders. And at table 7, Graham still sat, finishing his scotch. He waved Miguel over. "Hey, one last thing." Miguel approached, careful not to limp too much. Graham pulled a $50 bill from his wallet and held it up. "Want this?" Miguel hesitated. Graham smirked. "Say gracias like you mean it." Maybe bark too. "That's what you do, right? Clean and fetch." The room froze. Donovan laughed. Not loudly, just enough to let everyone know they shouldn't make it awkward. Lauren chuckled and looked away. No one said anything. Because in this place, power wasn't about being right, it was about owning the room. Miguel didn't move. His face didn't change. But his hand trembled slightly as he reached for the bill. "Don't." A quiet voice. Not loud. Not angry. Just present. Everyone turned. From the back corner of the restaurant, the man in the black cap stood now, eyes on Graham. He walked forward, slowly. Graham looked up, annoyed. "Excuse me?" The man ignored him. He walked past Graham. Past Donovan. Past Lauren. Straight to Miguel. And placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You've done enough tonight." Miguel blinked. So did everyone else. Because that voice. The face. It took Donovan a few extra seconds to register. Then his breath caught. "Wait, is that?" Lauren dropped her phone. Graham turned pale. Because standing in the center of the room now, calm as a monk in a hurricane, was Keanu Reeves. And the whole restaurant had just changed orbit. Silence. Thick and brittle. Graham shifted in his seat, lips parting like he wanted to laugh it off, but nothing came out. Just air and fear. Keanu didn't look at him. He was still focused on Miguel, who stood frozen, unsure whether to apologize or disappear. "You okay?" Keanu asked, voice low. Miguel nodded stiffly. But Keanu didn't move away. He turned slowly to face the room. Donovan, the manager, straightened his collar, voice cracking. "Mr. Reeves, we had no idea you were." Keanu raised a hand. Not a dramatic gesture. Just, don't do that. Don't fix it because I'm here. Everyone stood still. Even the cooks had come out from the kitchen now. Keanu looked around, not angry, just disappointed. You watched a man get degraded like it was part of the performance. The pause. No one flinched. Some of you even laughed. Graham tried to speak, but Keanu cut in, still calm. You didn't humiliate him. You humiliated yourselves. His eyes scanned the room. Lauren looked away. Donovan dropped his gaze. Keanu reached into his back pocket, pulled out a small notebook, worn at the edges, and scribbled something. Then walked to the register. He tore the note, placed it on the counter beside a black credit card, and said to Donovan, "That should cover everyone's wages tonight. And then some. Not for what they did. For what he did, despite all of you." Donovan nodded, speechless. Keanu turned back to Miguel. "You free for dinner?" Miguel blinked. "Sir?" Keanu gave a small smile. "You served all night. Let someone serve you." He held the door open. Miguel hesitated, then stepped out into the night beside him. The restaurant behind them stood still, quiet, like it had finally heard itself. The neon buzzed quietly above the 24-hour diner. Inside, it was all cracked leather booths and the faint smell of burnt coffee. A jukebox blinked in the corner, playing a Sinatra tune no one had requested. Miguel sat across from Keanu, still in his apron, hands folded tightly in his lap. He hadn't touched the sandwich on his plate. Keanu, quietly stirring sugar into his tea, finally broke the silence. "You don't owe me a story." Miguel looked up, eyes tired. "Maybe I owe myself one." He took a breath. "I wasn't always limping. 3 years ago, I worked construction. Was saving up to start a mechanic shop with my cousin. One day, we were patching a roof, nothing fancy, and the scaffolding gave out. He looked down at his hands. He died. I shattered my hip." Keanu didn't interrupt. He just listened, like the way a good story holds space for pain. Miguel continued. "I spent months in recovery. The settlement barely covered the bills. By the time I could walk again, no one was hiring a limping mechanic with no shop. So I started bussing tables. First for tips, then for dignity. I figured if I was invisible, at least I could still stand." Keanu finally spoke. "You weren't invisible tonight." Miguel shook his head slowly. "Only because you walked in." "No," Keanu replied, calm. "Because you didn't walk out." The pause. "You stayed. Even when it hurt." Miguel's lip twitched, somewhere between a smile and the memory of one. "You're good at this." Keanu smirked. "You think that's why I showed up?" Miguel raised an eyebrow. "Wasn't it?" Keanu sipped his tea, then said, "I don't show up for pity. I show up when the quietest person in the room is still holding up the ceiling." Outside, a truck rumbled by. Miguel finally picked up his sandwich. And across from him, Keanu just stayed. Not as a savior, but as a witness. And sometimes that's more than enough. The next afternoon, the staff at Voluto, the upscale restaurant, stood in a tight semicircle near the wine rack. Donovan, the manager, adjusted his tie with forced composure. "Let's get ahead of this," he said sharply. "Some of you might have noticed we had a special guest last night." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "If any of you are approached by media, influencers, or, let's say, curious customers, you're to say it was a misunderstanding. A spontaneous gesture. A private interaction. And most importantly, that Miguel was never mistreated." A thick silence. Then a voice, soft but unwavering. "That's not true." Everyone turned. It was Jules, the junior hostess. Barely 22. Polite to a fault. Always nervous with menus. Donovan blinked. "Excuse me?" "It's not true," Jules repeated. "I saw what happened. We all did. He humiliated Miguel. You laughed." Lauren, the head server, cleared her throat, arms crossed. "She's right. We stood there. We let it happen." Donovan's voice rose. "This is a hospitality business. You don't understand how." But this time, Miguel walked in. Not late. Not limping fast. just walking with intent. He looked around. At his coworkers. At Jules, still trembling. At Lauren. Even at Donovan. "You don't have to lie for me," Miguel said softly. "But you also don't get to lie about me." Donovan tried to recover. "We were just trying to protect the restaurant's reputation." Miguel cut in. "Quiet. You can't manage silence anymore." That room heard what it really sounds like when nothing is said. The room fell still. Jules let out a slow breath. Lauren nodded once. Even the line cooks in the back had stopped pretending to chop. The weight of truth was finally heavier than the fear of saying it. And somewhere in the back of the restaurant, near the staff lockers, a single note was taped to the inside of a metal door. "Dignity doesn't make noise. But it doesn't disappear either." 3 days later, the general manager of the Voluto restaurant group, Miranda Lang, flew in from New York. She didn't call ahead. She didn't shake hands. She walked through the front doors of the restaurant just before the dinner rush, in a crisp black suit and zero tolerance in her eyes. Donovan spotted her instantly. His smile cracked wide, false and tight. "Miranda! Didn't expect you in town." "Clearly," she replied flatly. She looked around the pristine room. "Funny. I saw this place all over TikTok this morning. But not for the tasting menu." She called a staff meeting. Right there, in the empty dining room. Servers, hosts, line cooks, even the dishwasher, Benny, stood at attention. Miguel, freshly changed from his prep apron, stood quietly near the back. Miranda folded her arms. "You all know why I'm here." A few nervous nods. Miranda looked directly at Donovan. "You let the wrong man walk out of this building. And you let the wrong behavior stay inside." Donovan opened his mouth. She raised a hand. "Don't." She turned to Miguel. "Mr. Reyes. I watched the footage. I read the statements. I saw the faces in that room. And what I saw was one man stand tall, while everyone else shrank." Miguel blinked. Miranda smiled, not soft but genuine. "We're opening a new concept next month. Community forward. Ethical kitchen. Apprentice-driven. I'm offering you a choice." She pulled a card from her blazer and held it out. "Come help me build it. From the ground up." Miguel didn't move at first. Not because he didn't believe her, but because, for the first time in years, someone believed in him. Donovan sputtered. "Miranda, he's a busboy." She turned back, eyes sharp. "He was. You just couldn't see past the plate in his hand." That night, Miguel didn't clock out the same way. He walked out the door with his head high, and his hands finally free of crumbs. The restaurant was quieter now. Not just in volume, in tone. Staff moved with more care. The new maitre d' greeted guests with warmth, not calculation. Donovan was gone. Miguel's name was still on the schedule, but only for one more week. After that, he'd be heading to Miranda's new restaurant across town to help build something entirely new. But on this night, just before closing, the hostess approached him with a puzzled look. "A guy just left this for you. Said you'd know." She handed over a folded napkin, thick linen, pristine white. Miguel frowned and opened it. Inside was a handwritten note. "You stood taller than most men I've known, and you did it with a tray in your hands. People think dignity is loud. But you proved it's quiet and patient and shows up even when no one says thank you. I'm not the reason things changed. You are. And I hope you never forget that. Tip, keep walking. There are more rooms waiting for you." Underneath the note was a receipt from a black coffee. One item. Total $3.25. And next to the tip line, $10,000. No signature. No phone number. Just a quiet exit, and a loud belief in someone who had never asked for it. Miguel sat on the edge of the bar, holding the napkin like it was made of glass. Because this wasn't just money. It was recognition. And that, for someone who had been stepped over, laughed at, and ignored for years, was priceless. The new restaurant was nothing like Voluto. No velvet ropes. No designer cutlery. No fake smiles. Just an open kitchen, wooden counters, mismatched chairs, and a chalkboard menu that changed daily. The name etched into the door in simple block letters? Common. Miguel stepped in early his first morning. The smell of paint still lingered on the walls. Miranda was already at the back, taking inventory with a clipboard. "You're the first one here," she said without looking up. "Old habits," Miguel smiled. By noon, staff began to filter in. Servers. One nervous pastry intern with flour on her nose. And then, Jalen. 17, wiry, awkward. Dishwasher. He barely made eye contact and kept his earbuds in when no one was talking to him. He looked at everyone like they were a test he'd already failed. Miguel watched him quietly. He saw it in the shoulders, the way they curled inward. He saw it in the eyes, scanning exits, not people. He saw himself. After the lunch rush, Miguel found Jalen scraping pans alone in the back. He grabbed a towel and joined him, not saying anything at first. Then gently, "Tough day?" Jalen shrugged. "I've had worse." Miguel smiled. "Yeah. Me too." Then Miguel wiped a tray and said, "You know what I used to do before this?" Jalen shook his head. "Scrub silverware. Same exact station. Different restaurant. Except back then, I thought this job meant I didn't matter." Jalen looked at him now, curious, maybe even skeptical. "What changed?" Miguel looked up from the sink, met his eyes. "Someone saw me. Didn't fix me. Didn't promise anything. Just saw me. The beat. I see you too, Jalen. And you're not invisible here." Jalen didn't say anything. But when Miguel turned to walk away, he caught it. A tiny nod. The kind of nod you give when you finally believe someone might not walk away first. Dinner rush. Common, hummed like a well-rehearsed song. Spoons clinking, low jazz spinning, pots bubbling just behind the open kitchen line. Miguel was checking plating on a mushroom risotto when Miranda walked up, face tight. "We've got someone at table 4. Miguel raised an eyebrow. "Everyone's someone. This one's someone else." She handed him a reservation slip. Name, Charles LaRue. Note, don't screw this up. LaRue was an infamous food critic. More tabloid than expert. More threat than praise. He'd made or broken a dozen restaurants with a single smug paragraph. At table 4, he was already tapping his empty wine glass. The server, Iva, just a week in, looked like she might cry. Miguel stepped in gently. "I'll take it." He approached LaRue, calm, hands behind his back. "Good evening, sir." LaRue didn't look up from his phone. "Took you long enough." He gestured to the menu. "Start with the bone marrow. Then impress me. And tell your chef if I see one fingerprint on my plate, I'm walking." Miguel nodded once. No smile. No fear. "We don't serve bone marrow." LaRue finally looked up. "Excuse me? It's not on our menu. We focus on seasonal, local dishes." "Do you know who I am?" LaRue snapped. Miguel tilted his head. "Do you know who you're speaking to?" A silence fell across the room, not loud, but sharp. Miguel didn't blink. "I've cleaned floors for men who acted more important than they were. I've bussed tables while people waved bills in my face like they were magic. But this isn't that place." LaRue leaned back, sneering. Miguel kept going. "You want the best thing on the menu? You got it. But what you won't get here is fear." Turned. Because fear doesn't make food taste better. The kitchen had gone silent. Even the dishwasher, Jalen, peeked out from behind the stacks. Miguel dropped the ticket on the line and looked at the staff. "Cook it like we always do. Like it matters." They did. LaRue ate in silence. Didn't leave a tip. Didn't leave a review. Just left. And for the first time, Miguel didn't feel small watching a powerful man walk away. He felt whole. The lunch crowd had just faded. The prep team moved fast, slicing herbs and checking stocks. Pans clanged rhythmically, until one slammed hard into the sink. Heads turned. Jalen stood over the prep station, fists clenched, shoulders stiff. His apron was splattered. His cutting board looked like a crime scene. He'd overcooked the garlic confit. Ava whispered, "He's been trying to get it right all week." Someone muttered, "Just toss him back to dishes." Miguel didn't say anything. He walked slowly to the station. Jalen turned before he got there. "I know," he snapped. "It's burnt." Miguel didn't flinch. didn't raise his voice, didn't cross his arms like a disappointed teacher. He simply pointed to the still hot pan Jalen had slammed into the sink. "Don't throw the pan." Jalen looked down, breathing hard. Miguel stepped closer. "Throwing the pan doesn't make it better. Talking does." Jalen looked up, eyes glassy. "I'm not like the rest of you. I didn't go to culinary school. I didn't even finish high school. I'm just here because no one else hired me." Miguel's voice was steady. "You think I walked in here with a resume? I limped in. Literally. With no title, no plan, and no backup. You're here because you stayed. That's enough for me." Jalen shook his head. "I'm gonna get fired." Miguel grabbed a clean pan, set it on the burner, and handed him a fresh head of garlic. "Then let's fail together. And if you burn it again, we'll do it again. Until you don't." Jalen stared at the garlic. Then at Miguel. Then nodded. Quietly. In the background, Miranda watched from her office doorway. She didn't interrupt. Just smiled. The kind that comes from watching someone who used to be invisible become essential. Miguel returned to the line, but not before clapping Jalen gently on the back. "Courage isn't getting it right. It's showing up again after you didn't." And Jalen did. All day. Without throwing a single pan. The invitation had come in a white envelope, no logo, just a gold-embossed line of text. Community Builders Gala, honoring local voices who made a difference. Miguel had laughed when he opened it. He didn't think he belonged in places with linen napkins anymore. Not unless he was setting the table. But there he was, 2 weeks later, standing on stage in a borrowed blazer, looking out at a room full of business owners, chefs, artists, and city leaders. Miranda sat near the front. Jalen was beside her in a tie 3 sizes too big. Someone handed Miguel the mic. The applause quieted. He held it for a second. Then, slowly lowered it. "I'm honored," he began. "I really am. But if you came here to hear me talk about change," he looked toward the back, "you should hear it from someone who's still living it." He nodded toward the crowd. A few heads turned. Jalen froze. Miguel gestured. "Jalen? Come up here." Murmurs rippled. Jalen shook his head at first. Miguel smiled. Patient. And Jalen, swallowing hard, stood and walked to the stage. Miguel handed him the mic. Whispered something no one could hear. Then stepped aside. Jalen looked out, hands shaking. His voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't know how to be seen before this year. Didn't think I was supposed to be." He blinked hard. "I messed up a lot. Still do. But someone told me that courage isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up again. So I did." He looked down at Miguel. "Because someone saw me. And didn't flinch." The crowd stood when he finished. Not for celebrity. Not for a headline. But for something real. Miguel never took the mic back. Because he'd already said what he needed to, by stepping aside. It had been nearly a year since Miguel last stepped through the doors of Veludo. The smell was the same, cedarwood polish and citrus oil. The lights still glowed gold, reflecting off crystal glasses and starched napkins. But something was different. The air didn't carry the same tension. The maitre d', a new one, greeted him warmly. "Welcome in, sir." No one recognized him. Except for Jules, the former hostess, now assistant manager. Her eyes lit up the moment she saw him. "You came back." Miguel smiled. "Just visiting." She led him to a table in the corner. Not the best seat. But not the worst. He sat. Looked around. The staff moved with more respect now, to each other, to the invisible hands that keep places like this running. No barking. No scoffing. Just grace. After a while, Jules returned with a cup of black coffee and a small envelope. "We've kept this. I didn't know if you'd ever want it back." Miguel opened it slowly. Inside was his old name tag. Faded. Miguel Busser. He turned it over. There, scrawled in permanent marker, barely legible. "You already have what they pretend to own." Miguel stared at it for a long moment. Then tucked it in his pocket. As he left, he paused by the dish station. A new kid, maybe 18, was scrubbing pans like the world depended on it. Miguel didn't say much. Just caught his eye. nodded. The boy looked confused at first, then stood a little straighter. Because sometimes, a nod from someone who's been through the fire is more powerful than a speech. Miguel stepped out into the evening light. The world hadn't changed. But he had. And now he was changing it. One person. One kitchen. One quiet moment at a time. Thanks for watching. Would you have stood up when Miguel was humiliated? Or would you have waited for someone like Keanu to walk in first? Speech balloons, share your answer in the comments. You never know who might need to hear your story.